Good morning, Coach. How you doing? I appreciate you jumping on such short notice.
Hey, no problem, man.
Good morning.
What's going on, guys?
Matt, before we get going, now, Dad claims he was a pitching coach at one time. He said he had a guy throw a no-hitter. So if you need any help over there at Marion Military.
Back-to-back no-hitters.
Back-to-back no-hitters, Matt, by the way.
All the help. I always use help on pitch.
He figured it out pretty fast, as you did, getting great players. But tell the listeners here with Brad Bohannon. There's a great story from Aaron Suttles. Had a lot of quotes from you about Jonah Todd and some of the stuff that Brad Bohannon saw in him, and maybe you reached out to Brad. Where some of the other schools were reluctant to come and watch Jonah play. He ends up leading Auburn in average, hits, and all kind of different categories. Just kind of tell that story there, Matt.
Well, I think there's a little thing with Marion Military where, people probably don't think there's probably really good players down there, because of the program history in the past. But, we had this kid, and I noticed instantly the kid had the ability to find the barrel every at bat. He had an approach. He was very solid in all aspects of the game. So I started calling, and, a lot of guys in the state were like, we just don't think he can play. We don't think he can play. Well, I called Bohannon, and I said, Brad, listen, man, there's no doubt this kid can play. I said, you just got to take my word, he can play. Brad said, well, I'll come watch him play. I said, well, every time I do this, the kid has a bad day. Well, he goes like 2 for 4, 3 for 5, something, hits a couple balls hard, and Brad says, you know what? If you think he can play that well, we'll take a chance. He said, we'll give him a guaranteed spot on the team. I said, all he needs is a chance, and I guess the rest is history. It's just Brad, I guess, took our word on it and said, hey, if you think he can play that well, we're going to take a chance on him.
Yep. That
Coach, how important – I think baseball recruiting is the most difficult recruiting you can have because of going pro and so forth. Basketball recruiting is awful, but baseball's worse. How important is it for the coach to know the scouts, the major league scouts, if they come by in order to kind of have some inside?
Well, like you said, these guys, when, basketball is bad, they could come a year and leave, but, baseball is like a revolving door. You got to know what guy's going to stay, what guy's going to go. You could go out there and sign the best class in the world, like you said, and next thing you know, they all get drafted, and you're stuck without a team the next year because you got all the best players signed, but they all get drafted. So, I guess you got to know, you got to have a niche of what the kid's assignability is on the professional level if you're really going to get that kid, and you got to have a good mixture of really good players, some players that aren't going to get drafted that are good, that kind of flying under the radar like a Jonah Todd and stuff like that. And I think that's what Bohannon's been able to do is find those guys that are right up under the major league radar, that are really good players, but yet they're still going to play their college ball, and you're not going to lose them June 15th and be scratching around trying to find 4 more guys at the end of the summer.
We're talking with Matt Downs, the head baseball coach over at Marion Military Institute. Coach, tell us about Brad Bohannon. One of the things you talked about is how he can deal with all types of people with egos. It sounds like to me he's like a guy that could go to the projects or he could go to the president, and he's comfortable in both situations, which makes you a great recruiter. Just what's been your experience with Brad there on the recruiting trail?
I heard a long time ago that great managers are not X's and O's. Great managers are guys that can handle clubhouses, egos, and personalities. And he's one of those guys, like I said in the article, he can take any personality, any ego, any type of kid, relate something to them, and keep them on the hook and try to make a friendship there where the kid feels comfortable and he relates to them and recruits them well. It doesn't take, he's not turned off by a certain personality from a kid from California or a kid from New York or a kid from South Florida. He has a way to relate to these kids and strike up conversations and keep them on the line and keep them on the hook and get them to sign.
Yep, that.
Oh, I don't have anything else, but is it possible for you to get players that after 2 years they're with you are a lot better in order to be looked at? I think so many times I got some JCs that were really good, not many but some, and I know football gets some too. Is baseball the kind of sport that guys are on the fringe and 2 years later they're good enough to play?
I think there's a lot of talent in the junior college system. There's not a bunch of kids on every team, but I think every team has a couple guys that are good enough to play at the Division I level. here and there. It just depends on what needs are at that level. You know, some teams may not be looking for the guy you got at that time. You know, and I think that's another thing goes back to Brad. You know, they may not have been needing an outfielder when they took Jonah Todd, but he thought he took my word, said the kid can flat out play. He told me, he said, you know, I think he may be a fourth outfielder. I don't think he'll start. And then he calls back and says, you were right, the kid can flat out play. Well, you know, he just took a chance on the kid he thought might be a fourth outfielder and ends up being their star player. So, I mean, I think you just, you know, there's guys out there, it may not be a certain need for that team at the time, but somebody like Brad takes a chance on a guy, even if it's not a need, because he could be a great player. You know, so there are some guys out there in the junior college level. There's a lot of arms, especially if they're in the junior college level, that can help out. So you see those year in and year out. And they use, you know, there's guys that were at Southern Union last year that signed in North Carolina and places like that. So there are arms out there.
We're talking with Matt Downs at Marion Military. Matt, as Brad comes in, you know, you've been a head coach there. There's a little different when that butt slides. I guess they say, 18 inches to the head roll there. Well, what kind of baseball program will he run here? What style of play do you think? Have you guys talked about that at all?
You know, I hadn't really talked about it that much with Brad about what he, you know, what kind of ball he's going to try to do. You know, I know, and as your dad knows and you know, college sports comes down to one thing: the players you have.
No doubt.
And I think his ability to get the players in there is what it's going to start with. You know, it's just you can't play baseball with a bunch of guys that aren't supposed to be out there. And I think he'll have the right guys, he'll recruit the right guys, and he'll have the team set up. Whatever he wants to do, what kind of ball he wants to play, I think he'll be able to win with it because he'll have the right players there to do it.
How good is this Alabama job, Matt?
Oh man, it's probably one of the best in the nation. Think about the new stadium they got. You take them to a Saturday football game, and the kids should be sold instantly.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, I think it's one of those things that really University of Alabama should be competing in the top 5 in the SEC every year. You know, I think the facilities are good enough, the campus is good enough. I mean, the city of Tuscaloosa is good enough. The football program, I just don't see why we can't be in the top 5 every year. And I really, truly believe Brad Bohannon will get them there.
No doubt. Well, Matt, tell us a little bit about your program there at Marion Military. I know you guys won the conference, I believe, last year, but just tell us about what all you guys are doing there.
I came in there 3 or 4 years ago, and we had a little rough patch my first year. You know, I spent a lot of time, like I just said, you know, the recruiting side of it's the biggest part of it, knowing just having players. So, you know, we spent a lot of time recruiting. We've won 30-plus the last 3 years. We've done really well. You know, the biggest thing we got going is our kids. All our kids are graduating and getting opportunities at the next level, and that's what my goal is just to get these guys a shot at the next level to play 4-year baseball. You know, we've been successful in most cases with every guy. So.
Well, you know, you got a tough situation there, but you worked through it. Like you said, you've won 30-something. How does a team like Matt Davidson with 3 scholarships win that regional over? I guess in baseball, they beat North Carolina twice in Chapel Hill. But I guess baseball, man, if you got a couple of good arms, you can play with anybody. It's kind of the equalizer. How does Davidson win that regional?
You know, I'll never forget when we were at regionals when I was at Alabama. You get in these regionals, and like you just said, you get a team that has 2 good arms, they can beat anybody in those regionals. They may be some team out of a no-name conference, and they just won 30 games out of a no-name conference, and you're thinking, oh, this is a nobody. They got 2 good arms that shut you down. Next thing you know, they bunt a couple runners over and get a couple bloop hits, and they beat you 2-0 or 3-1, and you're scratching your head thinking, how did this just happen? I think the game of baseball has changed a lot as far as the recruiting side. You know, there's so much out there now as far as all this travel ball and internet and getting kids' names out there that all these smaller schools are getting a piece of these bigger players that used to slide into the North Carolinas and the Vandy's. You know, you're starting to see these other teams starting to slide in and starting to be able to play with them because the recruiting side has gotten so broad and so wide span over everywhere.
Yeah, that's amazing, though, for Davidson. They were looking at regional and said, oh, yeah, North Carolina's a cakewalk for them in that regional. And for Davidson to win. That's a big series over there in Hattiesburg today, too, with Mississippi State having to beat Southern Miss twice. So baseball is pretty good in the Southeast, isn't it, Matt?
Baseball is very, very, very good in the Southeast. You know, you take teams like Mississippi State's really good, and here they are fixing to get beat by an in-state rival that's not even in the SEC.
Yeah. Southern
Miss. I mean, baseball, like I said, you know, these guys, with the way the recruiting goes now, these guys that are, you know, used to have to recruit close and local, I guess, like a Southern Miss, you know, they may be now in California and in Texas taking guys away from, you know, Long Beach State or something, for all we know. So, I mean, I think just the recruiting side has gotten so widespread all over the nation now.
Well, Brad Bohannon will be here at press conference day at 10, and he's got to get back on the plane and fly to Tallahassee. You got a guy you're going to call Brad about for Alabama? You got another diamond in the rough over there, Matt?
You know, we got a couple guys we're working on. We'll just see if it works out right now. I don't know, you know. We got a couple guys that I think have the ability, so we'll, you know, they're a year away, but we'll see after that year, see how they develop over this next sophomore season.
Well, Matt, we appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks,
as
Matt.
always.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for being on with us.